author, who has an unpronounceable name, talks about the opposing traits that creatives have, that the best creatives have. That they can be both extroverted and introverted, that they can be both attached and detached, they can be both playful and disciplined. And so this video is just describing with examples three differences, three different polar opposites that the best artists use. Anything else, Dad? So one of the polar opposite personality traits that the author talks about in this book is the axis of playful and disciplined. And we need look no further than the Get Back, the Beatles documentary series called Get Back. This documentary is just filled with plenty of playful moments and disciplined moments. The Beatles, regularly just slip into funny accents at a moment's notice. Paul climbs the scaffolding in the Twickenham studios for no reason at all, other than just for the hell of it. John is being tasked with introducing the Rolling Stones, and all he has to say is, "And now your host for the evening, the Rolling Stones," and he proceeds to do it in as many different ways, as many different odd ways as possible. And then he riffs off that. He takes an imaginative turn and starts introducing made-up bands with fake names. So he's like, "And now your host of the evening, the Boney Rolls, the Bottles, George and the Deaf Aids." There's one point where John and Paul sing their song through clenched teeth. And yet, when it comes down to it, it's like they flick a switch and they're all disciplined and they're all business and they're serious about getting the song completely 100% right. They do numerous takes of songs. In the album Abbey Road, they did up to 36, 32 takes for numerous songs. Their record is 102 takes for a song, Not Guilty. And every day that they have assigned as a work day, even if it's a weekend, they're in the studio trying to be as good as they can be. And it kind of shows the polar opposites that some of the best creatives have. They can be playful in one instance and disciplined in the other. They know how to be imaginative, but also how to be serious as well. So one of the other balances of opposing traits that the author talks about in his book is the opposites of imagination and fantasy, and reality and practicality. And we can look to an example of Steven Spielberg on the set of Ready Player One. So the imagination part was very easy for Steven. He could see in his head what he wanted to do. So to describe what's happening, the main character is watching a kind of a scene, right? And what he wants to do is Spielberg wants to show the technology of the future by showing that this character could watch this scene by manipulating it just by zooming in really quickly, zooming out really quickly, spinning the scene around so that it's not just one dimension, but you can actually view it from over here, you can view it from over here, and you could spin it at a moment's notice, right? So the imagination part was very easy for Spielberg. He could see what he wanted to do in his head. He could watch the film in his head. But he knew that in order for the scene to be successful, he had to transform what he had in his head into film. That as long as it's in his head, it's not going to be a successful scene. That the audience, whilst they're watching the movie in the cinema, can't just cut to sitting in Spielberg's head and watching the movie from there, or they can't plug into his head, or they can't just the film is going along, and then smash cut to Spielberg sitting in a chair describing what he wanted to do with this scene, and then the audience just has to use their imagination. He knew that the success of this scene hung on him problem solving and grappling with the technical limitations he had in his equipment, and eventually he did it. It's the reason why he's one of the best, is that he could turn his imagination transform it into film form. For those of you who are interested, he did it by forming a small like semicircle of 8 different cameras, and then he filmed the same scene with all 8 different cameras, and then he stitched them together, so it looks like it's all one motion when the character like flips it hard right or flips it hard left. He cuts between the cameras really quickly. It's really well stitched, and this blend of the 2 skills is one of the reasons why he's one of the best. So another bunch of opposites skills that this author talks about is the difference between attachment and detachment. That the creative can flip between the two, just like that. So it's understandable that attachment will occur. You know, if you're working on your novel in your spare time whilst doing, you know, a full-time job, you know, it takes a lot of passion and it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of time. It might take you years to craft your novel, and in that time you might, you know, fall in love with the characters, and you might think that this piece of work is the best piece of work in the world, you know, that it is perfect, it is flawless, right? And so if you are too attached, then, you know, you're not going to take criticism very well, and you're not going to be able to view your piece of work in any other way than it's perfect in your point of view. And the creative or artist that I've seen describe this best is Seth Godin, and he talks about detachment in 2 different ways, right? He provides this great saying: this might work, this might not work, and that's the attitude you're supposed to take whilst you're creating your piece, and it's the attitude you take whilst you put it out into the world. You know, so this might work covers you giving it your best, giving it your all, you know, and this might not work acknowledges that nobody can guarantee a hit, you know, that there is a very strong possibility that people aren't going to like it. You know, no one is universally liked, no piece is universally liked. And he has a great quote in one of his books, which I'll read to you now. Creative, dynamic, and happy people have invented a monologue built around taking the work seriously, but not personally, and accepting that it will all be okay. Taking it seriously, but not personally. So the first one is the detachment from the outcome, so that, you know, acknowledging that people might not like it. You know, although you love it to bits, others might not like it. The second bit of detachment is viewing it how others will view it. So, you know, so can you take a step back from what you think is a flawless piece, and can you look at it from a viewer's eyes? You know, like for example, when you're explaining a topic, you know, it's very easy. You make sense to yourself because you know the topic. This all makes sense to you. But if you were to hear it for the very first time, it might make no sense at all. You know, so can you look at your novel from the viewer's eyes? Can you spot the weaknesses? Can you spot where an explanation is a bit more needed? So, you know, what's great is, you know, you do a test run. You know, give it to someone and ask them, did it all make sense? So it's the attachment, the passion, you know, to work all the late hours, but also the detachment to know that not everyone's gonna like it, and no one owes you no one owes you their affection or their liking or their admiration. That, you know, you have to earn it. Just because you worked 1,000 hours on your novel does not mean that the world is gonna come to your door and buy 1,000 copies each. You know, they owe you nothing. So yeah, Seth Godin. I'd look up his materials. He's great. Yeah, and that's all I have for this video. I hope it helps. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks very much. I'm Thomas.